Hey everybody. So this is the Coda video for the Fall of France, the eighth episode that I had produced. If you haven't listened in to any of my Coda videos before, they're sort of intended to be shorter videos where I talk about some issues from the last episode, answer some folks' questions, if there are any, and then talk a little bit about the recording process or some other things that I'm concerned with right now. Yeah, I haven't recorded in a while. I haven't uploaded in a while. Not too long after I uploaded my Fall of France episode, I was working on another episode that I wanted to have ready for Christmas time. It was going to be about Dickens, kind of interweaving Charles Dickens themes in with talking about poverty in the early Victorian era and some of the misconceptions that we have around the Industrial Revolution, the benefits it brought, poverty, who it benefited most, stuff like that. And then I got another flu, so that was four times at that point in a little under 4 months that I was sick. And that just completely derailed me. I was so far behind on a lot of other more important things that I needed to do with my life at that point. And that was the worst and the most miserable of the four that I got. I'm not sure if it was COVID. The tests I took back, the home test came back negative. I'm starting to kind of question those things because I've been hearing from a lot of my friends who take the home tests, and they say that the home test came back negative, and now it turns out that they actually did have COVID when they went to get a test at a doctor. I didn't do that because I actually didn't have any days off remaining because of my previous illnesses. So I actually showed up to work and just cordoned myself off in my cubicle and in a little room that we have and sat there and was miserable, and that lasted for several days. It was bad. So that's why that video never came out. But I was having a conversation with a coworker of mine, and we were talking about some different things. And he brought up a talking point to me that sounded very in line with Whig history. If you know what Whig history is, you can go and look that up. It's a narrative framing for history that became very popular in the 19th century among liberals. That is to say, not old American liberals, but more the type of people who are very free market oriented and technology oriented, more like the classical liberals, or as I've said many times, what I think that modern American liberalism takes more inspiration from than classical New Deal liberalism. Classical, no, I just meant to say New Deal liberalism. But the liberalism of our grandparents and great grandparents. And so we were talking about that, and I started interweaving stuff that I wanted to do for the Dickens video, and that sparked something, and I was able to put all of these things together at once. And so I think that that's going to be the topic of the next video. Something that also kind of delayed me a little bit, other than being sick, was after I was able to recover from that, through the month of January and then into February, I started thinking a lot about, what do I want this channel to be about? How do I want how do I want to present this channel and myself and the material that I'm trying to cover to the YouTube audience? And I started thinking, and I've been thinking about this a lot since the Lee video. The Lee video got 25,000 views, and I was never expecting it to pick up that much energy that quickly. My first video got about 1,000 views. My second video got slightly under that number. And then my third, fourth, and fifth videos my fifth video hardly got any views at all. But my third and fourth video kind of basically hit like what my subscriber count is at this point. And then The Oppenheimer video performed a little bit better than the subscriber count, and my Fall of France video actually performed significantly under what my subscriber count is. And so that's kind of got me thinking, do I want to kind of chase relevance, and do videos that kind of fall with the Lee video and the that sort of in that sort of vein, or do I want to kind of just keep this as a smaller, small batch channel, as it were, that covers topics that are of interest to me at any given moment. And I think I've decided to do the latter. There's no real gain for me to be one in trying to chase videos where I get 10,000, 25,000, 50,000 views regularly, because I don't really plan on monetizing this. I know I talked about that a lot in the early days of maybe monetizing this, but the problem with that is that the recording schedule that I would need to do to feel like I can personally justify that, beyond people just kicking me $1 or $2 here or there, it's more than I am personally able to cover and hold down my current job, which has me doing a lot of overtime right now, social services position, which helps explain why I was getting sick so often. And to be able to do all of that, and also to be able to do those videos, would be too much. And I'm not gonna try to rule all in and turn this into my job, because so many people have failed at doing that. I am too old for that. I am too old for another opportunity to come up if I fail at trying to make this into a monetarily successful channel. So, yeah. Another reason for some of the recording delay has been that I've been reading a lot of books lately that I would describe as tackling the question of what went wrong in American politics and American social life. In particular, the Rick Perlstein series, which sort of covers the rise of modern conservatism through the 1960s, 70s, and 80s, but also a lot of other books that sort of cover more contemporary time periods, like Ryan Grimm's most recent book, The Squad. And as much as those books by Rick Perlstein are about the rise of modern conservatism, they're also about the decline of American liberalism. How American liberalism went from this sort of robust, socially democratic ideology of the working class that had a healthy skepticism of big, powerful institutions and the people who controlled them, into this sort of spongy, wishy-washy, meek BS that is modern American liberalism, which is this ideology that is deeply dependent upon the votes of people who are heavily marginalized and who really need things to work in order for their lives to improve, but is, completely respondent to the cultural mores and shibboleths of these people who really only concern themselves with creating the affect of being good people, not so much with actually doing things that would result in good outcomes. And they're hyper dependent upon civility and educational qualification and things like that as their benchmark. And no longer are they skeptical of powerful institutions, but they believe that somehow these institutions that are completely under elite capture are somehow going to save American democracy for them. But for them, their own advancement and the advancement of people who look like them, talk like them, act like them within these institutions, no matter how little power they actually have themselves, that is the same thing as these institutions doing good. And so therefore we need to put all of our trust within them instead of actually going out there and putting in the work that's required to turn things around. And so how do we get, that's something I've been thinking about an awful lot lately with the election coming up and with a lot of the personal disappointment that I've felt with the sort of progressive left-wing movement that, I was a part of since 2017. And so I've been looking into that a lot, and I can't make good video content out of that without it just being politics. And I don't want to be a political channel right now. Maybe someday I would be willing to branch off and do a channel that is like just my political views with some more history mixed in and some social context mixed in. But I don't want to do that right now. So turning that, and since my Eisenhower, like my video on Eisenhower and the breakup of the New Deal consensus did so poorly, I'm not sure there's much appetite out there for that type of content right now. Or maybe the algorithm just didn't bless me. I don't know, but it's not something that I want to engage with at this exact time. Considering that not so long ago I did videos that covered the similar-ish time period that did so poorly. So the fact that I've been getting so deeply into that has kind of kept me from getting into more fertile areas of history that I could be talking about for this channel. But after I had that conversation with my coworker, I think I finally found a direction forward that I can take into a topic that works for this channel. So I'm going to be working on that. I am working on it right now. That should be out here soon. Also, I think that, originally I wanted twice a month to be my schedule for releases, and then I said monthly. I think now it's just going to be whenever the hell I feel like it. I mean, to be honest, because and that's partly a product of the fact that, as I said, I've taken on this new role at my job. It's hectic, and it makes it harder for me to plan things in my life. But also, sometimes researching these things, some of these topics takes longer than others because is not a lot of material out there that's easily accessible, or the material that is out there is very dense. And so, I kind of think that, I'm just going to do this sort of Trey the Explainer thing. Not that I'm putting myself on his level at all, but kind of doing that thing where like releases just happen when they happen. And if you guys can be patient and look out for that, then I'd be very happy. That would just fit into my planning and my schedule a lot better. In terms of future video topics that I wanted to bring up, I still want to do that one on Civil War tactics. I want to do that one so badly, but I don't want to just become a Civil War channel, and I don't want people to subscribe to me expecting that it's just going to be American Civil War content all the time. But I so want to do that one. Like, that is one that I'm chomping at the bit to do. Another one that I really want to do, but I'm kind of putting off for a little bit, is a video that explicitly centers around Alexander Hamilton and kind of the Federalist Papers, and sort of the sort of mythos around the early founding fathers and what they believe, that they're said to have believed, versus what they actually thought, and the consequences of that, like why we're stuck with a government that, and for all intents and purposes, in the year 2024 is pretty dysfunctional. And very unrepresentative. And that's, my point of that video would not be just trash the founding fathers. They were, a lot of them, their viewpoints were pretty divergent. But my heater's going off. I'm sorry if that bothers anybody. I can't. It's like 25 degrees outside though, so I can't turn it off. Their points of view were pretty divergent on a lot of things, but they had these, or at least they turned around to enforce these beliefs on society and about history that we still carry with us today and are still used as talking points to sort of deny any initiative towards progress, if it's tried. And I mean, frankly, even though Jefferson became the third president, and brought in, Jeffersonian democracy, in terms of laying down the fundamentals for the country, the Hamiltonians won the argument. The Federalists won the argument. A lot of their institutions and the stuff that they wanted to build are kind of grafted into the essentials of our country. And what are the consequences of that? Who did that empower? Um, you know, what sort of mistaken beliefs did that lead to about history? And then also going back and doing a little bit about the Roman Republican period, and then the fall into to the Roman Empire. And I feel like a lot of the misconceptions that revolve around that, spoiler alert, Julius Caesar was not the cause of the destruction of the Republic. The Republic was in decline long before Caesar got there. Caesar was kind of just the last, really, if anything, the last attempt to hold the Republic in place. And then, after, but even his reforms were not acceptable to the people who had been empowered by the system, from the way that it had worked for this century, 2 centuries prior. So that's like kind of everything that I have coming up right now. So now moving on to the Fall of France video itself, and some added commentary and some context I wanted to add. The first thing I wanted to say about that video was concerning the audio and choppiness of the editing. As I said, I was sick when I was recording that for a pretty large chunk of it, so I am sorry about that. I ended up recording in various different locations, various different states of welfare, various different positions, physical positions even. And so I kind of just put it all together to work with what I had there. So I am sorry about that. But there were also a couple of places where I had some minor mistakes, where, for instance, I was talking about the war industries and how they were fighting to keep up. What I should have said was keep their profit margins up, and I said profit margins down. So there were a couple of little minor things in there that were like that. But I trust that you guys understood for the most part, what I was trying to say. One area that I really wanted to cover in the video, and I was not able to do that, was talking a little bit about Pierre Laval. Now, Laval was the Prime Minister of France during the Pétain regime. And he had been Prime Minister of France a couple of times before that for fairly short terms. And Laval is interesting because when a lot of right-wing groups want to connect socialism with fascism, Laval is one of the figures that they mention, because Laval had started out his political career as a socialist, and he was a member of the French section of the Workers' International up until 1923. But in the interim, in that 20 years in between, he adopted this sort of bizarre mix of far right-wing and far left-wing populist views. And as time went on, he started edging more and more into the right-wing views. So, the fact that he had this credibility made him a good choice for prime minister under the Vichy government. And what this kind of reminds me of, apart from the whole right wing thing, is that today you get a lot of sort of pro-establishment, centrist liberals who look at Bernie Bros and they're like, oh well, you look at these people and their talking points sound kind of similar in some ways to Trump talking points, and some of their figures since 2015 have transitioned between the far left and the far right, and so that means that all this comes from the same impulse and blah blah blah, and it's like you know they it shouldn't be a mystery to people why why there are some similarities in talking points, especially populist talking points between people who are on the left and people who are on the right, because all of this is about people who aren't doing well. And when these people aren't doing well, obviously they start looking for answers, and they gravitate towards whichever anti-establishment ideology is presenting them, or is at least trying to present them with answers that are responsive to the problems that they're seeing in their world at that time and in their lives at that time. And so you do get demagogues like Laval, trying to think of kind of a modern example, like a Jimmy Dore, who started out on the left, and then he's sort of become more of a right wing figure recently. But so you have these demagogues who are kind of opportunistically looking for an audience, but it shouldn't surprise people that there are a lot of similarities in terms of income and basic talking points between people who are on the populist left and the populist right, because they're all responding to real problems. And that was kind of the instinct in society that Laval was that was his position as a demagogue, but then what he was sort of making his way in between. And yeah, in a climate of political breakdown like this, you do see some migration of people from the left to the right, because they don't see their concerns being responded to. Say you have people who are on the left who are wary of institutionalism. They have concerns about too much power being in the hands of too few people. And then if liberal politicians look like they're not responsive to those concerns, then some of those people are going to gravitate more towards right-wing figures who seem more responsive to those concerns. It happens quite frequently during time periods where you see a lot of social strife, a lot of economic strife, and a lot of breakdown. And that's not a reason to dismiss people. That's a reason to try to be responsive to those concerns, and to see that there are opportunities with segments of the population. I've often said, I am very inclusive, but I don't think inclusivity and moderation are necessarily the same thing. And I see an awful lot of people out there who weirdly seem to be very strongly in favor of moderation, but they're very exclusive with their politics. But then of course you get demagogic figures like Laval. And was Laval intentionally a demagogue? Was he doing this because he was in search of an audience, or was he just kind of, his brain was kind of weirdly mutated by the conditions of social strife, and he earnestly believed that the problem with France by the 1940s was too much republicanism and democracy, and that Blum was the head of some social elite cabal. Who knows? But I wish I'd had more time to talk about him, but the video was already running long, and it was hard to slot it in based off of the way that I was going with things. But it is something I wanted to talk about, again, because it's often brought up by right-wingers who try to find connections between socialism and fascism, and a lot of it also fits with a narrative that a lot of more centrist-minded liberals make about populism, and how all populism is the same, and it all comes from a bad place and it should be disregarded. But that kind of flows into my next thing. So I I wish I had provided a better explanation in regards to my point of the problem with the Popular Front and Planism. I'd mentioned, Planism's tendency to, the Planists' tendency to have a hard time getting their plans through because these sort of large schemes are difficult to actually push through a legislative process. I had kind of mentioned that it creates an obsession with small technocratic benefits of policies as opposed to trying to enact sort of like broad sweeping reforms that are immediately going to help the general public, the way that FDR did with the New Deal. But something I didn't mention about planism is that it creates a type of situation where you measure outcomes by numbers instead of measuring the outcome by whether or not people perceive that their lives are getting better. You're looking at GDP figures, you're looking at manufacturing figures, you're looking at all this other stuff, and you're setting up goals that are based off of sort of this non-existent ideal of what you want to get to, as opposed to just kind of allowing the economy to do what it will do, but then providing that push that's going to help out average people. And eventually the plan becomes the objective as a means to show what a smarty pants you are and how good you are at scientifically planning micromanagement, as opposed to the objective being to actually improve people's lives. And as I said, Bloom's government very much fell victim to this after the sort of initial bursts of positive legislation that came out of Bloom's government. And FDR, during his administration, by and large, avoided this. But it's kind of funny that like this then became a downfall of American New liberals after World War II. And they too eventually became very obsessed with statistics and like smart little ideas and this kind of incrementalism that was more geared towards kind of trying to micromanage the economy and society, and set up goals based off of numbers and to actually produce good outcomes for people. And this gets incredibly absurd to the point where, Robert McNamara, who, he was a Republican, but he was a liberal Republican, is working with the Rand Corporation to come up with this kill ratio, essentially, of how many Vietnamese soldiers and peasants they need to kill versus every American GI lost. And this number that they come up with is the number that they believe is going to help them win the war. And it's, I hope by my just phrasing it that way, you can see what utter nonsense it is. But unfortunately, this instinct has clung on in a lot of progressive circles towards planism. And as I said, Bloom's government very much fell victim to this. But I think that's about it. So I'm going to end the video right there. If you have any questions, comments, anything else like that, please send those over. Hit like and subscribe. And thank you very much, everybody. Have a good day.